Welcome to Choosing to Be, your home for intimate conversations on transformation. This is Amanda Wirtz Rosolowski, and I'm delighted to share this time with you. Welcome. It is wonderful to be together again, to dedicate this time to coming home, to ourselves. We are here to lean in with greater truth so that we can grow and become more. I love that so much. I love to think about it. I love to talk about it. Can you tell? But I didn't choose this passion. It chose me. And today I'm going to share with you the story behind the story and how a question saved my life and why I'm here with you. I've been empowering individuals and strengthening communities for over 20 years as an educator, a keynote speaker, a researcher, and an electric violinist. I have a diverse history in the nonprofit, academic, and entrepreneurial worlds, all with a focus on personal and professional transformation. I currently serve, it is so wonderful. I currently serve as adjunct faculty at California State University at San Marcos, supporting first-generation students in their personal and professional development. Prior to that, I toured for 4 years in a self-directed one-woman show entitled The Right Question. It was a creative, empowering musical revelation of my own tragedy to triumph story, some of which I'll give you an overview of today. I was fortunate enough to invite audiences all around the world, tens of thousands of people, to reflect on what I strongly still believe to be the most important question. I wrote and performed the music in my show. I created the animations that moved with me on stage. And I shared every insight that was available to me. It was a completely vulnerable and road less traveled undertaking that I was absolutely consumed with. And it was extraordinarily successful. I did much of this work for free. I was really given a gift, and I wanted to give back. I still do. And my desire to serve the community in a variety of capacities, that is a very long river that runs deep. I have a master's degree in public health, health promotion, and behavioral science. And I've contributed over 3,500 hours as a volunteer. Kind of tricky to calculate. I helped to raise over $1.2 million for humanitarian aid and personally supported over 53,000 people in a variety of settings. These contributions have afforded me quite a bit of attention. I've been recognized by Congress, featured on local news, PBS, Fox News, Rotarian Magazine. I was the regional speaker for the YWCA. I received numerous awards: Center for Community Solutions Courage Award, the Selfless Service Award, various health leadership awards. And I've been honored as the Veteran of the Year for San Diego in the 76th District, Disabled American Veterans Veteran of the Year for the state of California. And I was crowned Miss Veteran America. Now, if you've stomached all these accolades, thank you for hanging in there. Let me be clear. Those experiences and awards are really fun to talk about. My ego particularly loves it, but they are not who I am. And I don't want to claim to be my accomplishments or awards, because if I claim I am those amazing things, then I also must claim that I am also the mortifying things that I've done. the mistakes, the blunders, the incredible messes I've created. Quite a few. I'm thankfully not those either. But they all belong in the story, and they are snapshots, moments in time, experiences that I've moved through and they've moved through me. Overall, I have had an incredible life, in many ways, an extraordinary life. And when I was a child, I was asking the question all children ask. Maybe some of you are even asking this today. What do I want to be? What do I want to be? Oh, I imagined many things, but I never imagined this. I was particularly committed to the question. I was raised by not only one, but two alcoholic parents. My family hardly laid a roadmap to a destination I wanted to travel. I was going to make it. I was going to answer this question, what do I want to be? And I was going to answer it well. So, as a young woman, I made some very industrious and courageous decisions. I joined the military. I proudly served as a top graduating cryptologic analyst for the U.S. Navy. I was an enemy code decipher for 6 years and was one of the first women to serve in combat and at sea. I did this voluntarily. I was later selected to serve in a Joint Forces NATO project supporting search and rescue and counter narcotic operations for the U.S. Embassy in Canada. And at the ripe age of 20 years old, I opened my own fitness studio and taught kickboxing and led running clinics. I thought I was so cool. And if life could have been even cooler, it was, because I turned my classical roots to rock and became an electric violinist. I played around the US and Canada, opened for some incredible acts, and have been featured on a variety of recording projects. It was so cool. I mean, who gets to say in their early 20s, I'm a spy, a rock star, and an entrepreneur? In my mind, I did it. I did it. In fact, I had answered the question I had always wanted to answer. But on May 5th, 2003, I realized I was asking the wrong question. I was asking the wrong question. When everything I had worked for, everything I prided myself on, everything I believed myself to be, slowly began to disappear. On that day, I was admitted to the emergency room for acute abdominal pain. And what I'd hoped to be appendicitis or gastroenteritis, a fancy word for upset stomach, was actually a tumor. But it wasn't just a tumor. It was the beginning of a very serious disease, the genesis of an explosion of tumors that resulted in the loss of my house, my job, my dreams, most certainly, and my identity. I was forced to relocate to Washington, D.C. to receive care at a military hospital. And over the course of several years, I had over 30 tumors removed from my knees to my rib cage. I had no education outside of the military, no family support, and a diagnosis that labeled my painful condition as rare, progressive, and incurable. Now, let me break that down to you a little bit. Rare, we don't know a lot about this. Progressive, this is only going to get worse. And incurable, there is no way out. For many days, maybe over the course of a year, I'd start my morning by crawling to the couch, putting my head in the cushions and crying. And that was before breakfast. It was during this season of my life that I became intimately familiar with the feeling of complete hopelessness. I did not have a future, at least one that I wanted. My options, as I understood them at that point, were continuous string of surgeries, a pain pump implanted in my spine, or, and I was considering it, suicide. The question I used to ask, what do I want to be? It did not matter anymore. I didn't know how long I would feel good, let alone how long I would live. Forget about career, forget about new dreams, forget about old dreams. Why would I do anything? So, out of desperation is an amazing doorway. We'll talk about that on another podcast. Out of desperation, I decided to conduct an experiment. I needed a new orientation to life. I needed a new question. So I began asking, who do I want to be? Who am I choosing to be? Oh my gosh, that's the name of this podcast. Who am I choosing to be? Yes, all roads lead to Rome. Who am I choosing to be right now? Because it's always a right now question. Who am I choosing to be? Because that is actually all we have. I became really aware of that. Who am I choosing to be? Because at the end of my life, and the story ends for the same for all of us, I wanted to be someone I was proud of. Who would I be? That's an easy question, right? I've asked people all around the world, what would you say? A lot of people say, I want to be a nice person. Maybe that's you. If that's not you, if you don't want to be a nice person, I don't know why you're listening to my podcast. It's a complicated question. We're frequently not invited into this inquiry, and I felt overwhelmed. Like many of you, especially you type A'ers, when I feel overwhelmed, I start making lists. I made a list, a pen and paper list of the qualities and the characteristics I wanted to embody. And I read this list. It was an act of desperation. I read this list every morning and every night, every morning and every night. I made the decision, no matter what happens today, Amanda, even if the only thing we do today is go to the doctor, this is who we are going to be. This is how we are going to show up. This is who I am choosing to be. I would choose to be resilient, generous, compassionate, kind, forgiving. That's the tough one. I would be a woman who would be willing to do her best always, take risks for the right reasons, extend myself for the greater good. And I discovered, experientially, that if I was her, I wouldn't just be interested in helping myself. I would want to build hope and a future for others. And this experiment, this question, that orientation, and those answers began affecting every single decision that I made. I located the world's leading researcher on my disease. She was a busy endocrinologist, and after our brief appointment, she said to me, Amanda, the good news is that I can confirm this is what you have. The bad news is I don't have any answers because I don't have any help. And I made a promise to myself, a silent promise to myself, that if I ever became well enough, I would somehow return to her laboratory to help. I had no idea how or how that would even play out. But it was an important promise. And when I returned home, I started to care so deeply about things I had never cared about. I'd never participated in any real service project before, but I felt compelled to contribute. I flew to South America and volunteered at an orphanage. I helped to support and fund the adoption of 3 young girls there. I volunteered at a crisis nursery, helped rehabilitate a homeless shelter, distribute backpacks, school supplies to low income families, volunteer my time supporting Alzheimer's patients and their caregivers. Doing these things became simply a response to the question, who am I choosing to be? I discovered I did have a choice, and it did make a difference. It made a big difference. Because of the question, I started taking notes on what made me feel better and what made me feel worse. Eventually, I found my way back to the leading researcher in her laboratory. I volunteered hundreds of hours as a researcher on my own condition. I was fortunate enough to meet with patients from all over the world, present our work at a pain symposium, and I was the first patient in UCSD history to teach doctors how to diagnose and treat their patients. In the end, I became one of the first, if not the first patient to stop the progression of my disease. I continued investing in people in the US, Mexico, Uganda, Peru, Guatemala, wounded warriors, homeless veterans, victims of domestic violence, underserved youth, orphans, abandoned children, families facing food insecurity, individuals living in war-torn and disaster relief areas. Today, I'm supporting the LA fire victims. Along the way, and this is still true even today, I have witnessed incredible acts of service, unbelievable sacrifice, extraordinary compassion. My gosh, I'm just tearing up thinking about it. I've stood alongside volunteers and physicians, educators, community leaders who have demonstrated exceptional character. And they taught me about radical generosity. So many stories. I watched them and I learned so much about who I wanted to be. I experienced firsthand, time and time again, the power of this incredibly transformative question. I realized I had nothing to lose. I had lost everything, but I found myself. When you choose to embody kindness, compassion, curiosity, you can't help but serve. Mahatma Gandhi's infamous quote highlights well my experience. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. I found myself. I liked her. And maybe for the first time, I found myself and I discovered the truth. And the truth is that our true point of power, of meaning, of purpose is in one singular choice. And that's who we are choosing to be at any given moment. I still have a list. I'm still deeply committed to this question. I'm still absolutely mystified by the miraculous unfolding of life when I invest in this process. I want to share that, all of that, and the insight that comes with it. I want to share as much as I possibly can, because what I'm creating here with you, this is the answer to the right question, and it's who I am choosing to be. Well, we did it. And now you have it, the story behind the story. For today, I invite you to celebrate your growing awareness of your choice, which is your power and life's invitation to answer in a new way. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it and subscribe. Thank you for being part of this growing community. For now, this is Amanda Wirtz Rosolowski, celebrating your highest and most important choice, who you are choosing to be.